What's up, everybody? Welcome to Omnic Lab, episode 102. This week is like every other week for Omnic Lab. We're back to the origins. We're back to talking strategies. And this week, we're bringing in the data analyst himself, Switch Fox of Omnic Meta. What's up, Switch?
Not much. Glad to be here. It's a lot to talk about.
Glad to have you back. There is a lot to talk about. My name is Rob. Patched in from Japan. It's nice and late, so you see me in some really ridiculous clothes if you're watching the live stream. And Andres in our Georgia Peach. What's up, Andres?
What's up, what's up? Yeah, I'm glad to be here. There's a lot of changes going on in Overwatch. I'm glad that Switch is here to help us go through all those changes, because I know that your data numbers have kind of gone off the grid over there.
Oh, man.
We
have not just new data and new meta, but we've got like new heroes in the data. We've got new adjustments to existing heroes. And then when we have Brigitte jumping in and shifting the entire game towards one way or another, you're now seeing complete and utter round meta shifts. Like, we're seeing heroes that didn't exist before in the game, like Reinhardt. That's a new hero. We have Doomfist, who's had even more bug fixes and now doesn't have to worry about Tracer and Genji being all up in his business all the time. So we got lots of stuff to be talking about this week. But I think before we get really ironed out and going, we are an Overwatch podcast, and Switch, we got to give you the whole shtick, dude. Tell us about what Omnic Meta is and what you're trying to do on the website, and then we'll kind of get in here to who else is sponsoring us, and then we'll start talking about the data.
Great, yeah. So Omnic Meta is the site that I created to kind of analyze what is actually going on in competitive Overwatch. We see a lot of data, just in general, about what maybe pick rates are or something like that. I wanted to go a little bit deeper. A lot of the stuff is pick rates, but also change rates between patch to patch. What are the new heroes that are coming into the meta? How good are those heroes, or are people just picking them because they're new? Things like that, and we'll get into that more. Some of the data that we're gonna, just a small preview, we're gonna get into, is Brigitte even a healer? Can she heal? Is she putting out output compared to other supports? Data like that, and really help me kind of first, selfishly, and then others to kind of understand, how did the patch actually change the game, or did it?
Right.
That's kind of what the website's about.
Okay. We still have the normal things that we need to go run through, so let's go ahead and do that. We have the game night recap. It went really well. Lots of craziness with the combination of the game show plus the game night, but it was a lot of fun. Lots of people were there. There was also a High Noon podcast 12-hour stream the next day. So God bless Blevins and Deathblow for hanging out with us and then doing that the next day. Those guys are nutty. We also had the new launch of Season 10. And we also have Top Score Solutions back yet again this week, sponsoring us. And so this is Ben, aka I Need Peeling, in Discord. He's offering business consultation for free in the esports field. So if you're an aspiring coach, if you want to develop some kind of app or a service, if you want to boost a subscriber base, just want to work in esports, any of these things, you can visit his website, topscoresolutions.com, or find him on Twitter with Topscore Esports tag. You can also find him on our Discord server. He's very active. Ben is a master's in sports management and business and marketing experience. He hooked me up with my team that I'm now doing some coaching for. And the plan is to keep things free as long as the interest is there and the demand is allowing it. So take it up while you can still get it for free. Of course, we already had Omnic Meta here to talk with us about the entire show. So if you want to check it out, there's tons more stats with the data that we're discussing today. Actually launched less than an hour prior to our recording of the live show. So when you get this in your eardrums, this will be within 3 to 5 days of the launch on their website. So this will be very current in your ears if you're listening to this right after we release it in the podcast streams. In addition, Andres has a conclusion episode coming up for Owl Recap. If you want to talk about that. I don't think you guys have recorded just yet, but it is coming around the horizon on the bend, if you want to talk about that.
Yeah, that's correct. Stage 3 has finished. We have NYXL claiming the throne once again. but not without a big challenge from Boston Uprising, a team that went undefeated this season. If you guys are into Overwatch League, make sure to check Owl Recap. Bob and Mel were recently in California for the finals, so they got to interview a ton of people and be there on the ground floor talking to everyone. So they're going to have a ton of stories. They're coming back today. Not exactly sure when the live show is going to go on since, they're still traveling. But we do have a lot of new audio recordings, so stay tuned for that because it's coming out this week, and we'll recap the finals for Overwatch League.
And another last thing here is special thanks to our diamond sponsors, Ben K, Britmus, Chris Taplaya, Golden Soldier A, Great Root Bear of the 5 Deadly Venoms, Jan Jinkle, Jeffy, Jeff D, Lysum, Never Clutch, Ray, Roger B, Ricky Tiki Shazir, Scantily Clad, Top Score Solutions, of course, and Tragic Zach. Thank you guys so much, as well as newcomer on the block to the Patreon team. We have Michael S. Thank you so much for joining. Love the spelling of your name, by the way. Very Russia, Slovakian origins over there. It's very cool. The M-I-K-A-L. I love that spelling of Michael. Additionally, if you guys like to support us, patreon.com/Omnic Lab is the best way to do that. And also you can support Omnic Meta at patreon.com/Omnic Meta. These are how you keep the lights on and also how you keep us getting into areas where we would not be able to get there. I know that I speak on behalf of Andres and Omnic Lab when I say this, but this gets us to BlizzCon. This gets us to stage finals for our recap. This gets us it gets us interview with pro players. It legitimizes the show. It helps me when things like this week happen, which for those of you who are unengaged in the Discord, my hard drive failed this week. So I have to invest in getting a new one and flexing my really crappy hardware fingers and try to put this thing together. Hopefully, I have some great admin and mods that help me out when I'm panicking. But
we do have some great admins and mods. They are a great bunch.
Got my man Boombat in Australia to basically give him a ring, and he'll be there when I hit the panic button. I need to buy one of those buttons where you hit it and it says GG, except for this one says don't panic, and I'm just gonna have that by me.
It's like
every time somebody insta-locks Hanzo or something. I don't know.
Like the Winston recall short, you just have the recall button. You click it, and all the mods get pinged. Rob needs help.
Yeah. Yep. / everyone. That's a good joke. Mine's just admin help. But without further ado, let's get into the show. Okay. So Switch and Andres and I were talking in the pre-show. What we want to do first and foremost, before we get into anything, is visceral, 100% accurate emotional responses to how this is going on. Right.
100% opinion-based facts.
Switch is normally the stat guy, but Switch, what was your first response to this? I know that usually you're very level-headed when you have some sort of response to something because you're like, well, I'll just get into the data and then we'll figure it out from there. But before you get there, you kind of have your hands, you're like, something is amiss, and then you have to go to the data. What was that moment for you?
You're talking about just the new patch, right? And
yeah, just the new patch,
really,
when things started going crazy.
So what do I do? So, I've got a day job. So I turn on Twitch. I go to work most days. I turn on Twitch and I'm like, okay, great. This is going to be good. Let's see what the top 500, these pros, what are they doing? And it's chaos. People are trying Brigitte and they're like, oh, wait, this might actually be broken. And then they start putting together the pieces. Because they don't play PTR, a lot of these players, they go straight and just go into a blind, and you get to kind of see their thought process, and you see some heroes that you haven't seen in a long time. You see heroes like Ryan, Zarya, and then you suddenly have 600, 700 HP heroes running around the map, and people are shocked. I think the other thing my impression is that there were a lot of Tracer 1 tricks that were smaller time streamers that I watched that were completely crushed, and then now they're playing Brigitte because they can't play Tracer anymore. They're like, well, I was a Tracer 1 trick, and now what? So that's my first impression.
There's been a lot of switches in this patch. First of all, because Brigitte finally hits comp, and I think that what you're saying is right. A lot of these pros are not going to PTR. They're not worrying too much about that until it comes to the live servers where they're practicing and playing every day, and it actually affects them. And then, okay, they get to try out this stuff. And I think that same with me. I went to Twitch, I watched a couple of streamers. I was watching a couple tanks actually. I was watching our friend, why am I blanking on his name? Or Orisa player, Evil Toaster.
Evil Toast.
Yeah, we had Evil Toaster for a while. He's a great main tank player, and he was trying to play Reinhardt in the new meta, and it was painful to watch his frustration at some points because there was like strings of moments where literally his Rein got stunned by Brigitte, then flashbang, then pinned by the other Reinhardt, then like hooked, and then
Then
Junkrat
uppercutted
trapped.
by Doomfist
Yeah.
and punched out of
It
the
was
way.
like this poor Reinhardt for like a straight 20 seconds. And granted, his team was keeping him alive for the whole time, but he literally couldn't do anything. He was just getting tossed around, manhandled. It was hilarious, but you could see how that could get frustrating for him a little bit. So lots of that sort of chaos that people, new things, they don't know how to react. And Brigitte itself has increased the playstyle of other heroes that we haven't seen before. Like we got Zarya creeping up again. Doomfist seems to be doing good. Junkrat is having a field day. It's like the best month in his life since the nerf.
Immobile heroes and explodies. Yes, that's
Yeah,
the Junkrat meta if I've ever seen
talk a
one.
little bit about that, Rob. Like, what have you seen as combination and comps this patch?
Well, my favorite thing was actually a random suggestion I saw on my YouTube videos this week. It had a parallel edit of the same game where Rami, our Lucio specialist we had on the show a couple weeks ago or a month ago, next to an XQC stream where XQC was on Rhine and Rami was playing Brigitte. And it's not like her first game on it, but definitely like she's played a few times on Brigitte before going into the map. And there's like 2 deaths where he had resulted in him charging onto the point and her stunning him, and then their team just deleting him. And and then the next time that he died, he was 1v1 against her, like using his shield, and Brigitte killed him. And he's like, let me get this straight. I have a Reinhardt shield. It blocks bullets. It blocks rockets. It blocks all of these things. But I died to
Diva
a flail.
explosion.
It's like I died to a flail. It's just super funny. But anyways, meta stuff. I've really been enjoying Brigitte, but I have been noticing after Andres and I played a lot of duos, then we played trios, and then we played 6-stacks. And then I went back to playing duos and trios with other people. And Brigitte is so different with the style that you cannot really adopt any other form of playstyle outside of basically a peeling tank. And you're playing as like a support. So it's almost as if you're playing like an immobile version of Diva mixed with like a CC Zenyatta. It's kind of a strange like dichotomy that you have to run, but your immobility as like a Diva, immobile Diva, is still fairly mobile because you have the ability to displace people with the whip, and then you also have the ability to slightly displace and also stun lock people. And our team that I've been coaching has been experimenting a lot with a really cool strategy on 2CP defense, where we're running an Ana, a Zenyatta, or an Ana and a Lucio alongside of Brigitte. So what happens is our team plays super narrow on Volskaya. The team engages, and then my Ana player, who's our shot caller, will say, I'm throwing the grenade. And the Reinhardt comes in, and you stun the Reinhardt, and you get a 6-man purple, and everything dies. And it's really crazy, the amount of like playmaking potential you can have with just one stun on your team. And it's not like, it's the difference between this and having a stun with something, say, like Earth Shatter, is it's an ultimate for starters. And then when you have a McCree is very squishy. Whereas Brigitte has much more dualistic capabilities with the armor, with healing, self-sustain, all of these things, and running 3 supports. So that's just something that I've been seeing. Again, we could talk like this as long as we want, but I think it's probably time we get into the data.
Well, I wanted to ask you, Switch, because I think you mentioned something like this earlier today, where you were saying, is Brigitte truly a support, or does she feel like something else? You want to speak to that a little bit?
I think I think everybody kind of knows that it's hard to compare her to other supports. You try and you start thinking, oh, well, she's got an aura healing that's kind of like Lucio, or oh, she can kind of do these one-off repair packs that can kind of heal. Maybe that's kind of like Ana in that it's a projectile type of healing. And then you think, oh, and her ultimate provides armor, and that's kind of where the comparisons start to end. You start thinking, well, but armor's persistent, so it's not like Sound Barrier, it's not like Transcendence. And then you start thinking, oh, the repair pack also can boost them with a temporary armor
boost,
and absorb. So now if you can prevent heroes from being one shot by Widow, by Hanzo, by a lot of stuff. And she's got a shield.
I was about to mention that. Yeah, she can actually cover bullets for other people.
She can. And what's the final thing? She has knockback and, of course, the stun, which is just nobody has both of those in their kit. No hero in Overwatch has both. So she can peel and she can stun. And it turns out that stun is incredibly valuable.
And it's mobility on top of that.
That's true.
It's also a mobility tool. I've actually used it to get it from balcony to balcony in buildings or so on. So actually, it does give you a fair bit of mobility having that stun in your arsenal. And I agree with that. She seems really interesting. And you could argue that her heal, her main heal, her E, the burst heal that she throws out that also gives you armor.
Pack.
I'm not exactly sure what the name is.
Repair pack, I think.
Repair pack.
Yeah.
There you go.
I think so.
That to me almost feels like a Zarya shield more than any heal or anything. It almost looks to me like when you want to use it, you're almost using it in the exact same circumstances when you use the Zarya shield. When somebody gets hooked, when somebody gets trapped in front of the enemy team, when a Widowmaker is about to shoot your squishy, you can give him armor and so on. And because it not only tops him off, but it gives him a temporary armor boost, it's kind of like that extra health that the Zarya shield is giving you in a way. Obviously, you're not blocking damage. You'll still die to things like Diva Bomb, etc. But I feel like there's a lot of parallels in those. And same with her kit in general. It feels like very tanky, right? And it feels like it fills that tank niche that other tank heroes sometimes fill. And not only that, but because you have the stun and the knockback, she almost acts as like a Roadhog style deterrent, right? Like this is a very beefy backliner that if you dive your squishies back there, he's going to be your main threat, right? Or in this case, she's going to be your main threat. And it's almost like a deterrent for any of these other heroes that we have kind of seen falling off this week. Have they gone for good? We don't know, but definitely Genji, Tracer, they've all suffered quite a bit from Winston as well. Any of these heroes that like hang out on the back line and threatening all the squishies, suddenly they're finding themselves very threatened. As Genji, it's one of the most frustrating things to try to dive the back line only to find a Brigitte waiting around the corner because there's no getting away from her.
To use deflect.
Yeah.
And you're just like, that's cute.
Like
stun.
If by some reason you're able to survive her stun and her little combo thingy, she still has the whip that has a fairly good range, and she can still whip you as you're going away with that last 20 HP. So I don't know, really tough to play against her. Definitely has shaken things up. We're not used to playing against a hero like this. And what I think is most interesting is the heroes that she's bringing up with her. We're seeing the rise of Deathball. We're seeing a more static gameplay, heroes that don't have as much mobility, but her kits are really strong when they get up close. Brigitte is enabling all these compositions to kind of flourish again. And maybe you can tell us a little more about that switch with the stats and stuff. I know you have a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah, should we just go ahead and dive in and start doing some comparisons? So this is an article that I just posted on the omnicmeta.com website that I just prepared. Fresh data. So what's this? What's the article? The article is the best way that I found to kind of like dive into what the patch has done is to compare the hero that was changed in the patch, or in this case, Brigitte, who's a new hero, to other heroes. So we start off, just let's take a look and kind of talk about what her healing numbers are. So right now she's got Repair Pack as her, and she's got the self-healing and Aura
Inspire.
Healing. That's right, Inspire. Thank you. as her way to heal. Both of those actually have pretty low HP per second that they really can give. The best way to maximize that is to group people up, like Andra said, in Deathball. So how does she compare? Right now, Brigitte in general is doing about 5,000 to 7,500 health healed, or HP healed per match. Where does that put her? That actually puts her in the realm of Lucio and Zenyatta, which as off supports. Might not completely surprise you. So her aura healing does kind of feel like Lucio's.
Mm-hmm.
That puts her at about, she's a little bit less, because Mercy and the main healers, like Mercy and Moira, they're at about 10,000 to 12,500. So
And
they're substantially underneath.
that makes a lot of sense to me, because with Lucio, at least, you can call your healing aura on demand. With Brigitte, on the other hand, you have to rely on at least hitting somebody to be able to activate that heal, whether it's with your whip or with your flail or with any of your abilities. But you have to have somebody nearby.
Yeah.
Now, Switch, I wanted to ask you about this, because there's something very interesting with the Zenyatta and the Brigitte numbers. Because when you look at where gold is, all the way through Grandmaster on both of the heroes, the totality of average healing coming out of both of the heroes is flattened a lot versus the differences you're seeing with people min-maxing Moira and Ana, for example. There's still a steady stair-stepping up with how much they're gaining on Moira versus people underutilizing it at lower tiers. So my question is, do you think this is because that's just what they're capable of? Or they're just like getting them like a little bit of heals and then the main key healer is bringing them back? Or is it that, you know, Brigitte is just not figured out just yet and the passive healing doesn't last as long, or it's a little bit more negligible, and the repair pack, or the repair pack is what's really getting the heals numbers out over time?
I think it's a good question. We don't know for sure. My gut feeling is that, so Zenyatta's been out for a long time, right? So you kind of expect his healing curve to be kind of representative of what you might expect. There's only so much that your healing orb and so much transcendence you can reasonably expect. With Brigitte, I think it's actually kind of similar. I think you're seeing a little bit better teamwork. You've got more people grouped up to take Inspire healing. They're within that kind of area of effect. I think that you're seeing this kind of, this is basically what Brigitte's healing is going to be. It could go up. It could go up as people figure her out more. But I think it's more that you see it kind of taper off because you're maximizing the Inspire healing is what my gut feeling is. You're maximizing, you're packing people together, you're having these sustained fights. As you get to, like, say, Platinum, Diamond, you're having a little bit better type of teamwork. And people aren't just dying or trickling in.
Now, this is a side note. This is just a side note for those of you listening out there. When you want to utilize Inspire procs when you land a hit of your flail, whether it be the rocket flail ability or just a standard melee, like your primary fire. Either of these will proc it, but in starting or procking or turning on Inspire, when the attack registers, whoever is in the vicinity is now going to gain that heal. So if I am outside of that range of Switch, for example, and he's playing a backline hero like Widowmaker and I'm playing Brigitte, and I hit somebody and then move into his area, he will not receive any healing. That's how this ability works. I was doing a lot of research and I played a good amount of games on Brigitte this season already. She's already my most played hero. Outside of her and Hanzo, I haven't played really much of anything else. And this is a very sizable thing when you're running comps that don't run Deathball. You don't see the heals hardly at all. And if somebody's a backline hero, you save your repair pack for them.
That's a good point. I mean, in some ways, once you pick Brigitte, I don't think it's entirely true, but you're not going to get any healing out of her if you aren't running like a tight comp like Deathball. You're just done.
You pretty much have to use the repair pack on cooldown as well, on top of that, to get like min-max healing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you can tell that I've played it a couple of times, and when I was playing with teams that were very spread out, it was really hard to keep him alive. Likewise, when you're running with an off healer like Zenyatta or Lucio, and people tend to be spraying around, it's incredibly hard to heal them. Keeping a Pharah alive can be really hard too, because your burst heal, it's in a relatively long cooldown, and if you have to use it on the Pharah, then you're not using it on your tanks. You're not using it on your other DPS. You're not using it on your support. So I do find her that the comps that work best with her are always adjacent to her, helping her trigger that inspire and staying alive like so. But she definitely feels like
cooldown.
You want a main healer with her. At least that's how it's felt to me. Like whenever you play with a Nana, a Mercy, even a Moira, you have a much easier time keeping your team alive.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. It kind of like plays into how I think maybe we've noticed Brigitte has really kind of played in practice, that you want to keep her alive. If you keep her alive, you can help sustain your team. She can use her stuns. She can use her other abilities. She can get rally. She can farm rally, and hopefully, pop her ultimate so your team can take advantage of armor. What I found in a loss that I had when I played Brigitte is that when people started to kind of trickle and refuse to group, because sometimes you have stubborn teammates when you play solo queue, she is basically useless as well, because you just can't do anything. You don't have anyone to protect you and keep you alive so you can heal people.
She does feel tanky in that way. Like tanks rely on having that person next to them to really take full advantage of their kits. It's exactly how she feels. She's not a solo hero. If you're not around people, half of your kit is gonna feel lackluster, I would say. Let's talk a little bit about
transition into damage. Yeah.
Oh, that and the tanks. What are tanks that are playing with her?
Yeah. Let's actually talk about something else before we get into things. Let's talk about. So is Brigitte just healing? No, she's armor too. And this is the point that I want to kind of bring up.
Okay.
If you combine the amount of armor that she gets per game with the healing, that's like the total, what I'm calling protection of your team. And of course, you can use that with shield heroes like Zenyatta to provide a buffer. Zarya, these are great heroes that synergize. If you add in armor provided, healing done, she is basically outputting the total protection of Mercy and Moira. So she provides a lot of value. I just wanted to briefly say that you can't look at her right now as just a healer, just for healing. It really is the armor that sets her apart from the other supports right now.
And you have to keep into account that armor also can take more damage than regular health or shields. So even that little bit of armor goes a long way.
And this is, again, maybe getting into the stats a little bit more, but I know Switch will appreciate this. When you have armor on a hero that has shields, Symmetra, Zarya, Zenyatta, those are just 3 examples. Or if you have a Doomfist that's gaining shields, the shields pad outside of the armor. You have standard health, armor, and then shields. So if you have a shields over the armor that you gain from Rally or a Torbjorn, for example, when you are taking damage in the shield phase, the application of the armor is still being portrayed. So that means the damage that you're getting from pellets or shots is reduced by half, or a max of 5. That's how armor works. So if I'm a Zenyatta and I have 150 armor and 150 or 200 health and the other crazy amount of shields, until people chip away through the shields to get to the armor and then chip the armor down, I'm basically a super tank Zenyatta with armor all the way through the shields.
Interesting. I actually didn't know that's how it worked. So
that's why Zarya and Zenyatta are insanely powerful right now.
Gotcha. Well, you learn something new every day.
And you can regenerate that health after not being in combat for a long time.
Another way to think about this. So let's think about Zenyatta. So Zenyatta goes up to 350 HP total.
Yeah.
150 shield. You got to work through that. And then you have 150 max armor from Rally. And then you have your 50 regular HP.
Correct.
So you've got to work through 150 shield. And then, like Rob says, you get the damage reducing effect of the armor. But here's the interesting thing. It really protects against burst damage. Not only can you not be one-shot, but it gives a little bit of time to react if you're a support. To keep Brigitte up, it gives you more time to react as Zenyatta. I'm sorry. Yeah, and it gives you more time as Zenyatta to reposition, to do whatever you need to do to be like, oh, shoot, there's a Widowmaker there.
Right.
Yeah.
And then get topped off, and then you have information. So just being able to sustain a little bit more in a team fight, it just does great. That's why I think a lot of pros are just like, I don't understand why Blizzard just doesn't fix that. That's the thing that's wrong.
That's the main thing that people are really whining about at the higher tiers. Yeah. They're saying, why does shields shift with armor? Armor should be on top of shields.
I should always be able to chip down the armor. And in the case of Zarya, like you said, Zarya, Zenyatta, and Symmetra, you can't do that.
Symmetra is actually insanely oppressive. I would venture to say if you did the more research into this, switch it to compare with this stat tracking sheet at the lower tiers in games where Symmetra is paired with a Brigitte is really devastating. Because how you block armor, remember it's a cap of 5 or half. So when the damage ramps, you're only losing 5 out of that, and it's ticking down like really fast, and you're just melted.
And it's interesting to see it because we see the shift there in the meta. Now that Brigitte is out there and is kind of running rampant, we're seeing this shift where everyone's becoming very static. The armor is becoming really important, and especially at the lower tiers, like you said, heroes like Brigitte and paired with Symmetra, for example, that can give a huge amount of health to certain heroes, makes for this really extended, very attrition-based fights where both teams are just constantly shooting at each other, throwing things. Healths are super high, so you're not getting a lot of things done very quickly. And heroes that rely on having that chip damage and then coming in for the burst at the last second, like Tracer or Genji, they can't do that anymore, or it's not as easy for them. It's very hard for them to find a hero that is low on health. And me just playing Genji and Tracer this past few weeks, or this past week, that's how it feels, right? Like normally I'm in the sidelines, I'm poking some damage, throwing some shurikens, throwing my pistols, trying to wear him down a little bit. And as soon as I see them slightly out of position, you double blink to them, you try to headshot him and finish him off with a melee. But that is not happening because one is very hard to chip at them. You have Brigitte constantly healing them. You have the armor going on them. So having them at low health is a lot rarer now. And then on top of that, when you go in for the kill and Brigitte just burst heals them and gives them armor on to top it off, you're just basically like, oh crap. Now I have no dash reset, or you have to like backtrack as Tracer and try it again. But this whole time it's just taking you too long. I've actually found out that heroes with really high burst potential, like Widowmaker, for example, tend to be a little more effective because I don't have to rely on chipping away health constantly.
You're only losing 5 damage into the armor.
Yeah, exactly. If I could just find like that one headshot on the Zenyatta in the back, Brigitte won't have time to burst heal her. And as long as there's no rally or anything like that, if I can just get rid of them in one shot, I've been finding that is a lot more effective than trying to chip at them because it takes too long, man.
Yeah. So I think you will really want to think about Brigitte, like I said, armor and healing together. It's like total protection. That's what lets you sustain these fights. And that's kind of what I think the data shows.
Totally. Let's talk about the tanks, because there's been a huge shift on the tanks that like being used. And this might be temporary, but it seems to me that Brigitte has traded a lot of the tanks that are being Winston and D.Va are no longer the hotness of the moment. Actually, they feel a little lackluster in certain situations with this new meta.
Yeah, so if you think about it, Dive, which was this, high mobility, get in quick, focus down targets type of team composition, that no longer kind of works anymore because you've got Brigitte, you have this armor, you have this protection. So you've got the heroes in tanks like D.Va, like Winston, that just completely have fallen out of favor. Winston especially. Winston is basically not being played right now. You still see Diva at the lower tiers, but at the higher tiers, she's very rare. And so better question is, what's taking her place? What are people playing? We mentioned Zarya, but Reinhardt's back too, right?
Absolutely.
And maybe you guys have some thoughts on that.
No. That's what I've been playing as well in my games. A lot of Reinhardt. Reinhardt has become like the new best main tank. He's back in the meta, and I want to say it's not necessarily that Winston and Diva are bad heroes, but just the playstyle and the playing field has changed. Before, you had Tracers and Genjis running around as the main DPS for most of the fight, maybe a Widowmaker here and there, maybe a Junkrat, but Tracer and Genji were like the main ones. And to combat those heroes, you need tanks that can match that degree of mobility, right? You need tanks that can get to the backline real fast. You need tanks that can jump in with them to help them and stuff. Reinhardt doesn't do that. Roadhog doesn't do that. Zarya, to a certain degree with the shield, but certainly not as well as a Diva or a Winston can do it. Now you have the super tough backlines that if you dive with a Winston, you just get stunned to oblivion. Your own damage as Winston sometimes can't even out-damage the healing put out by Brigitte's Inspire. And because you're having to dive her, it's really easy for her to just keep flailing you as Winston and keep that heal uptime up at all times. So as Winston, all of your damage gets neglected quite a bit because Brigitte is just healing through it. And Genji doesn't have the ability to dive as easy. Tracer doesn't have the ability to dive as easy. So suddenly the appeal of this dive style is gone through the gutter. Like, it's just not that good against the beefy backline that you have. That's not to say that things might turn around. Genji and Tracer might find other niches. You'd never know. But right now, the standard of let's pick high mobility heroes, pick a target, all go and diver, that's kind of out of fashion at this moment.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. Interesting point that you made is that maybe the Diva Winston tank combo was really enabled by Genji and Tracer. That you really needed them to really unlock,
that potential.
And then now that you have these mobile heroes, Tracer, Genji, that really just get smacked around, they can't be played as well with Brigitte, and so now, why have those tanks?
Mm-hmm.
You could even argue the inclusion of Zenyatta into that equation, because, like, a lot of times if you don't have coordination in solo queue, for example, even though you're running dive, it honestly could come down to which Winston was taking advantage of the Discord orb better. Because the team's focusing whatever the Discord was, that target dies because everyone has damage on that target. And only Zenyatta just needs to have LOS and just go like boop and like mark them. And on top of that, you would also see Mercy show up with Widowmakers, and it would just be like tanks would get ripped in half. Well, that's because they didn't have a barrier. So now we have Orisa, in addition to Zarya and Reinhardt, also coming in the equation for 2CP maps a lot. I'll see a lot of Orisa. And even though her barriers are blocking more damage than Reinhardt's, Reinhardt and Orisa have not only large health pools being tanks, but the majority of their health pools are armor. And then on top of that, you're getting that replenished burst with Brigitte, and you're getting more armor with Rally.
Right. And just think about the fight itself too. The heroes that you're fighting against, the kit that Orisa has and that Reinhardt has are so much more well geared to fight that battle. They have the huge shields that enable them to kind of stand in front of the enemy team, which at this point is more than likely a Death Volley style of team. They're all going to be kind of cluttered together. Likewise, your team is going to be as well. So your huge shield is perfect for that. And then think about Orisa's pull, for example. Tundra is mentioning here in the chat, and I think he's right. Orisa's pull is great when you have everyone clustered together, when you can use it to boop the Rhine around and create some space in between the shield, when you can grab everyone and pull them back. I think that it works really, really well, as well as her spammy nature. Her ability to become the fortify ability to become completely immobile, actually, I think is one of the abilities that got boosted the most because of this meta. Because as you see, there's so many ways to disable the hero. There's 2 stuns with flashbang and Brigitte stun, and then you have flails and stuff running all over the place. The ability to just at will be saying like, I'm not gonna move out of this place. This is where I want to stand as Orisa. Is really strong, and I've already been able to use it to my advantage against Reinhardt's, against Death Valley compositions when they come at you. You just stand your
win
ground.
The shield war.
Yeah, you stand your ground, then the enemy team's like, oh, we can't actually boop her. So her kit is very well designed for that type of environment that we're in right now.
Can we take this discussion and shift it, and let's go into how the game is shifting with niche heroes and how some of the quote-unquote niche heroes or meta-dependent ones, depending on how you want to frame it, are now popping up in different pockets or are popping up as mainstays. And the first one that we definitely have to address as the Shimada in the room is Hanzo, because boy's got some new bows and some new arrows, and he learned how to jump twice like his brother. And also, I've been watching quite a lot. I actually tuned into Aruge's stream last night, and Hanzo can now pull Spider-Man's where he can wall climb and double jump buildings. And it is insanely mobile. And to the effect that you can utilize it for more than repositioning and disengaging, but aggressive plays, dodging plays, dueling plays. You can use the storm arrows. Like, there's something that I've been trying to communicate and trying to figure out a good way to communicate it. But basically, when there's an Orisa there in particular, you can win the shield battle almost 100% of the time by just spamming it with your regular fire and waiting for her to drop the second shield. And the second she does, you activate storm arrows and unleash all of them into the barriers already less than half. And that's just your damage. So the shields go completely disintegrate into paper when you're running Hanzo against barriers. And furthermore, if you're running Hanzo alongside of something like a Bastion, even if the Bastion's only sticking around for a few seconds, Bastion is insanely powerful in certain areas and compositions and tight quarters. And then if you want to flip this on its head with pairing with Brigitte instead of countering it, you can run Mei, who now has the ability to go through targets that don't have barriers. Again, going through targets with her spray in order to freeze. And isolating Death Ball is a really good strategy if you can isolate them with the ball and split them, and then you can actually have a 3v6 for a few seconds. So Mei's showing up, and you're also seeing things where you're getting like a stun on a Reinhardt, followed up by a Sombra hack, followed up by an EMP, and it's just like CC after CC after CC, and there's just nothing there. And then, if you really want to start chipping away armor, why don't you just get rid of the shields altogether by using EMP? So there's all of these really crazy things that you're seeing. And the last thing that I'll throw in there as a wrench is triple support, which is there. It's Zenyatta and Brigitte and whatever main healer you'd like to run. And we were talking about this in the pre-show as being really good.
Yeah, there's definitely been a shaking up of a lot of heroes coming into play. And I think that this has to do with the cluttering up of heroes. Like, a lot of teams are staying together where you have 5, 6 people all standing in the same general vicinity. And that is like a feast for certain heroes. Like Hanzo, for example, the new Storm Arrow, when you're firing at a cluster of people, you'd be surprised how many times you just randomly kill two people, 3 people. I remember when I was trying it in Rialto, the enemy team was coming out in Deathball with Brigitte and stuff, and we're just spamming. Eventually, their Reinhardt shield broke, and I just activate Storm Arrow and fire at them. I wasn't even aiming at anyone relatively, just at the cluster of people, and boom, 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 3 kills all at once. I was like, oh my god, this deals a lot of damage to clusters. And his ultimate too. When you have everyone cluster up in the hallway and you just throw your dragon, that's just your dream as Hanzo. Likewise with all of the heroes that I mentioned. With Zarya, for example, Graviton, like that's the dream for Zarya, to have everyone in the same place. You just throw that, get the entire team, and then you just call out for your Hanzo or anyone else who's behind you to finish off the job. EMP as well. If you can EMP the entire team, well, even better for you. Something that wasn't as easy to do with the dive meta when you have heroes all around the flanks and stuff. Now it's quite easy to do. Earth Shatter, likewise. I mean, any of these abilities. I think that go for it.
Oh, I was gonna say there's one more DPS hero that I saved for Switch to have his fun story about, which is Doomfist, but we'll get to that in a second.
Yeah, Doomfist has actually been season play too, and Pharah as well. When you have all these ground heroes that can't really shoot at her as much, Pharah can have a really, really good time unless the enemy team has a really oppressive hit scan. But even then, I think that Pharah has had its moments this meta. Mei as well, with her cryo freeze and now being able to freeze several people at the same time, with her little freeze being able to bypass enemies. That's also really great, especially against Brigitte, whenever you try and get her out of the way. But I'm going to pass it to Switch to talk about Doomfist a little bit.
You know, it's interesting that we kind of talked a little bit. So not that the support meta has completely settled or the tank meta, but you know, or the meta in general. But offensive heroes and defensive heroes, these DPS heroes, these are flex picks more than any of the other categories, right? You decide, oh well, this person's playing a little bit sloppy, or I'm gonna go X, or you know what, I don't think they have a good hit scan player, or they're gonna ignore me. I'm gonna go Pharah. In the case of Doomfist, wow, so what does Doomfist do? Doomfist displaces you, punches you, and then can solo kill you if you aren't careful. I played a game where I was Brigitte on Junkertown, and man, we were on attack and we just got destroyed by this Doomfist. This Doomfist would literally dive in, knew what he was doing, knew to dive in, rocket punch out, and he just literally kept killing me over and over as Brigitte. And with me being dead, even though I was kind of being pocketed, my team didn't try to counter him, and so we barely were able to make progress. On the flip side, I'm like, you know what? I trust myself more than I trust these DPS players who are not really doing a good job peeling for us. Picking Junkrat, picking someone else that's better at displacing turned out to be good, right? So what are we talking about? One of the biggest things of Overwatch that Jeff Kaplan always said was that we want people to switch heroes. And I think we're starting to see that. Now, maybe that's just experimentation before the meta settles out. But, picking Pharah, okay, Pharah's not working out. Picking Doomfist, like these are like viable picks. You guys were talking earlier, picking Bastion. I mean, wow.
Right, yeah.
Who would have thought that stationary Bastion seated on Ilios while everyone else funnels in death battles?
600 health Torbjorns on defense on Hanamura have been redonkulous.
And it works because you have this new composition, which is not dive. And I think that dive in itself, I don't particularly have anything against it. I think it's a fun composition. I really enjoy playing Tracer. I really enjoy playing Genji. But it was a composition that was leaving in the dust a lot of other heroes because he was so good. And for the longest time, it was kind of like the thing to play. Then he was leaving heroes like Bastion, for example, like Mei, even Hanzo before his rework. And I would say even after the rework, he would have been still a little bit lackluster if dive was the thing to do. These heroes just have different strengths, and most of them are not chasing tiny hitboxes that can fling around the map in no time. A lot of these heroes are more, hey, I want to fire at 3 or 4 heroes at the same time. I want to be able to cluster them together and give him hell. I want to be able to abuse my range, for example, as Pharah or Widowmaker. But it's not the same when no one is kind of like clustered up and everyone's hiding.
Yeah.
Just jumps out at one point to kill you and then disperse. Like that playstyle just doesn't enable a lot of heroes.
I wonder what their testing was like. Like this kind of goes back a little bit on the change that they rolled out for Tracer, where they nerfed the totality of the pulse bomb. I wonder why they rolled that change out so quickly prior to this. You know what I mean? Like if armor is going to be this oppressive and this like mainstay of something that people are going to be having as a threat, and then you're going to turn down the only hero that has like a good, solo kill potential on high health targets. When everything is a tank, killing a single tank with your pulse bomb seems pretty normal.
I think that one was
what they're really.
Sorry, I was gonna
Go
say, I
ahead.
think that one itself was an Overwatch League inspired change. I would say more than anything,
Sure.
not meta or anything. It was the way that
It's
the
like the
pros
Jonak
at the
change for
Overwatch
Zenyatta,
League
right?
were using it. Yeah, where it was almost exclusively to take the diva out of the make or take the Winston out.
Yeah.
And I think it was starting to trickle down into competitive, and Blizzard was like, yeah, that's
Well,
not how we want pulse bomb to be used.
Right. Right. So I think what we're seeing now is I have to bring in a little bit of the PTR and let you guys know that this is not like something that is going to be stable for a very long time. Even as the meta continually works itself out, by the time we kind of get some form of semblance or like hero pick rates that kind of start evening out, we're going to get, they're going to throw the next wrench in the system, which is Rally is going to go down, at least for now. Rally is going down from 150 cap down to 100 cap so that people aren't just using Rally between fights and going into a fight with a full 6 stack of plus 150 armor, aka around 200 effective health on top of their main health bar. So that Rally is used as both a reactionary and an engagement tool. Traditionally, it's probably better as an engagement tool. I would say it's probably fair in what we've seen so far, even though right now it's not currently being used that way. That's what they're trying to do. And then they're also going to up the 1 second on the cooldown for the shield bash. So you have to wait 1 more second, which arguably needed to happen at a very base level. I think that they could probably up it to like 8 seconds, to be frank, because it's really powerful. And also given the fact that you have the displacement of knocking somebody back every 4 seconds with the whip shot. I believe that is correct. I'm going to go double check here. It is a 4 second cooldown on the whip shot. Yes, but it actually is a little bit longer because the wind up for the use of the ability and then the retraction adds like about almost 1.5 seconds to 2 seconds on top of the cooldown. So you can kind of say it's about 6 seconds too. Given that the cooldown doesn't go on cooldown until it retracts, I think. So just keep these things in mind. But man, there's just so much stuff to talk about this one hero that it's really difficult to inform just how powerful other heroes are because everything is interpreted through the lens of how Brigitte is currently being played and how powerful she is.
Right, and it's so early.
That's how
too.
shaping she is right now.
It's so early right now. Like everyone's discovering, oh, Brigitte is actually really powerful. Oh, these heroes work really well with Brigitte. And now we're going to the next phase, which is okay, what heroes actually work really well to defeat Brigitte? And right now it's gonna be a process of iteration. And I want to ask a question to Switch. Actually, I want to ask it for everyone, but I'm going to start with Switch. Do you think that this is going to be the new standard? Or do you think that right now we're in the middle of the storm, things haven't settled down, and people just haven't figured out ways to counter Brigitte, for example, as easily as they have done before?
I think that she is a strong hero. Rob made a comment that they're trying to do some adjustments. I think the Rally armor is, just looking at it, it probably is the biggest deal. Should they do other things? Maybe. So is this going to be the gold standard? That was your question. I actually think that probably not. I think Blizzard is actively trying to make every hero viable. They wouldn't say that, but we've seen reworks of Hanzo, where it was a very niche hero that angered a lot of people because he could one-shot tanks instantaneously, and they've tried to fix that. So they're going to be doing a rework on Symmetra, which we know about, and they've mentioned Torb as well. So they are trying to pull heroes and fix them such that they're not these completely niche one-off heroes, but they are more general. Not in 100% of situations could you run them, but in more situations. And so what's the point of doing that? I think they're trying to really get back to that whole point of Overwatch for the purposes of maybe of Overwatch League. You might say they're making these changes for that, but they want people to switch heroes. They don't want people to stay on one hero.
Right.
throughout the match. They want people to change it up. I think that you're going to see these standard comps for a while. I mean, even with 100 armor and having a 300 HP Zen floating around is still pretty good, and Zarya as well. So you probably still will see the Zen, Brigitte, Zarya, Reinhardt type comps. We still have a ton of shields in the game. We have tons of shields, and we still have to figure out how to get around that. Sombra, running Sombra into a 300 HP Zen is not that great. You know, instead
Unless
of
you have
instantly,
EMP.
if you have EMP and they have 100, well, right now 150 armor, you can't instantly kill a Zen anymore.
It's not the same as
No.
just put him into 50 health.
I'm just saying that EMP doesn't necessarily give you the win. It just gives you a chance. That's how impressive the armor can feel.
Now, what do we think of dive switch? Do you think that there's still a place for dive? Do the stats right now show a very grim future for that style? Or do you think that as things settle, we will see some sort of dive still be able to work in some maps?
I think you'll see that coming back. Even just so I do, I play around high plat, and I also watch a lot of Twitch. I think you're starting to see that people, when Brigitte came out, they're like, well, I'm not playing Tracer anymore. Well, I'm not playing Genji anymore. And I think that for people that love to play those heroes, they're going to come back and play them. And they're going to find out that they can be effective in certain scenarios.
Right. And a good example of that, and I definitely agree with you. I think that right now, what the reason why we're calling this episode Brigittepocalypse is because things have changed so drastically. The meta has changed so drastically that people have been spewing doom sayings like, oh, the dive is over, Genji is unplayable, this meta is like way too much. But I think that in a sense, people just haven't had the chance to adapt. To give an example, and you mentioned this earlier, Switch, we were in Ilios and we were getting like our asses beat, so we just switched to a Bastion. Like you would say, that's why are you switching to Bastion and Ilios? But they were running this very tanky shield comp with an Orisa and Brigitte, and they were just kind of hanging out in the same side, not moving too much. And I think that they're
barriers.
Yeah, so it just Bastion just comes in. I put my overcharger with Orisa, and he just mows down them over. They keep trying to come at us, but the only thing they can do is walk towards us with that composition. So every time they did, we just kept mowing them down.
Nice slow burn
with the Bastion, exactly. And I just kept thinking to myself, as like, these guys in the enemy team are so set on the Orisa meta and doing, the Brigitte meta and doing that right now, that they don't realize if they just switch to a Tracer or Genji that can actually go around our Bastion and stick a pulse bomb or deflect into him or something. Yeah, like that is still a way to get rid of him, and you don't have to just walk into the Bastion. Like there's heroes that can still have a lot of mobility and stuff. So I don't know. I think that there's still a time and place to pick these heroes.
So what I hear you saying, Andres, is that you think there's going to be using some type of hero. There'll be a counter to the Brigitte meta, and maybe the counter to that. So you've ventured maybe a rock paper scissors is what Blizzard is trying to do. They're trying to introduce metas where you want to switch. Now maybe if you've got a team that is really really good at Brigitte, Orisa, pick your heroes, you're not going to be able to beat them even with another comp. They're going to figure out a way to beat you.
Yeah.
So,
and that's where
here's some. Sorry, Andres.
I was just gonna say that this is where we're heading right now. We're at the point where we know that Brigitte is strong. We know that Brigitte can make certain compositions thrive to the point where we're seeing a bunch of other heroes come out. Now, is it so strong that it's gonna become the new dive, where you just run Brigitte almost exclusively in every map? You run kind of like Death Volley style, except for very few maps that you might switch to something else? Or is it going to be mostly like, who can run the better run comp, right? Does it have to be Brigitte? Can you breed the Brigitte comps with other styles? Or is it so strong that it will obliterate every other style? I think that's where we're at right now. And we have to figure it out as players.
Here's something that I brought up I think in Discord, just in a small chat. I don't know how many of you guys were around for it, but this is the first time in Overwatch history where we have diversity within the support tree, to the point that you can choose a support not by virtue of what your team is playing, but by what you want to counter on the enemy support. This is something that we haven't really seen outside of like when we had a lot of instability around Ana's release, where you started like throwing the grenades to like counter Zenyatta's, or throwing the grenades to eliminate Mercy. And then we got Moira. And then it was just like, well, Moira's only good when you're in tight quarters, or when you can start throwing the orbs and like farming your ult really quickly, right? Now that we have Brigitte, we have a good way to rework around that. Like I was saying earlier at the beginning of the show, where you throw the grenade to counter something, or you use the stun, the stun with Brigitte in a tight quarters fight, where you can have the flexibility of a composition that moves as a unit. How do you beat that? Well, Andres has, you know, a Bastion game, or Wahoopi has his Mei games. You know, I mean, people have different ways in which they can counter, but it doesn't always necessarily need to be a certain DPS hero. It can be. But what we're seeing with the new trees is that in reality, the tanks are seeing a more dynamic shift into complementing their teams and shifting the pace of how they run, rather than picking tanks and DPS to counter the enemy team. DPS are still the core of counters, but the support trees are actually able to run Zenyatta's like Jonak and rip through people, or play Brigitte and CC people to the floor. Sometimes you run both, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you want the mobility from, you know, Lucio. Other times you want the damage boost from Mercy. And then there's other games where we're talking run 4 DPS and 1 healer and 1 tank. I mean, there's so much creativity right now with what people are running, that nothing is wrong and nothing is right. It's just how you want to interact with the enemy team, and how you want to run something that your team's comfortable with in solo queue. And the most creativity I think we're going to be wanting to pay attention to is watching the contenders scene, because there's the first people on the patch to play it competitively.
And then of course next week we get to see.
Well, we'll see what the
Overwatch
pros actually
League,
get to use, right?
Right, yeah.
You know, I think that it definitely is the case that, you know, people are going to try new things, and that's part of adding new heroes to the game. You know, we started with very few heroes. We're now at 27. More and more, they're going to add something that, you know, they're going to add more stuff that counters shields, more stuff that counters mobility. There's going to be, instead of us moving to, you know, what's my favorite hero that I like to play, that's fine. That hero might fit in a couple of different scenarios, but you'll be thinking, how can I work with my team? We saw Orisa Hog become quite popular, especially in Overwatch League. We're going to see things like Brigitte, possibly Brigitte, Zen, and Zarya become a thing. You know, what you're going to find there, as they add heroes, you're going to have more heroes that synergize with each other. And you're going to find that there's more counters, that putting these two heroes together counters these two heroes.
Yeah,
I think that's a very
pairing counters is a good point. Yeah,
I think one of the coolest things to see about Brigitte, though, is how her kit has really enabled so many other heroes. And I think that has been the main thing. Like, she enables like the playstyle so well that all these other heroes are thriving, and because these heroes are thriving, this other subset of heroes is being played less. A subset of heroes that was really popular in the past. So I don't know. I think it's really interesting, especially for heroes that come out in the future. Like, how will Blizzard think about them? Because Brigitte seems very deliberate. It seems like it was a very specific answer to this hole that was missing in Overwatch. How do we make static comps be stronger? How do we make backline not always be super squishy to the point where running heroes that can get to the backline real fast, finish the job, and get out are the best heroes? And I think that it was a very deliberate answer to that problem, and it's actually working pretty much as intended, I would say. Now, depending on who you are, depending what heroes you like playing, for you, this might be the worst thing that has been ever done to Overwatch, and you might be ready to uninstall the game. I can understand the feeling and the frustration, but I think it's a healthier attitude to look at more of like, what's the meta? How can you adapt your playstyle? Are we gonna have to change the way we play Tracer? Are we gonna have to change the way we play Genji? Can they still thrive in certain environments? I don't know. That's kind of like the questions that I'm asking myself right now. I personally enjoyed the Brigitte meta. I've been playing guys like Reinhardt that I haven't played in ages, and actually I've been having fun because I actually have people to hit. I can swing my hammer and hit like 3 people in their heads. There's people for me to shatter. It just feels great to play him again.
And those heroes are going to come back. I mean, you're going to have Tracer, Genji. They're very much, I mean, they're high mobility, flanker, opportunists, whatever you want to call them.
Mm-hmm.
That's always going to be a thing in Overwatch.
Right.
Now, are you going to run a ton of them together for dive? Who knows? Maybe not.
And you gotta remember that Brigitte still has a lot of weaknesses. She's not good at long range. As soon as you have to put her against heroes that have like long range, she becomes very lackluster. If there's nobody around to be hit, her kit feels very weak. Also, she lacks a little bit of mobility that other supports don't. Mercy still has one of the highest mobilities in the game. So does Lucio. Brigitte is still lackluster in those things, and if you can exploit those things, she will feel not as strong. But I think that right now there's not a lot of people that are doing that because they're just getting to know what are the weaknesses. If you go and play Brigitte, though, you will find yourself in certain situations where you're like, oh, I don't think I'm pulling my weight right now, depending on what the other team is doing.
One thing we haven't mentioned, which I'd be curious to get your guys' thoughts, is that everything that I understand is that you're basically pocketing the Brigitte. When you're running triple support, you're running a Mercy to help keep that Brigitte alive. If you're running a Zen, you keep the orb on Brigitte. So, I mean, you're pouring a ton of resources. That's the point. It's like pharmacy, right? You pour resources to keep the Pharaoh alive. In this case, I think people are putting a lot of resources in keeping Brigitte alive.
They do,
so
yeah.
Part of the counter then is how can you exploit that decision to invest a ton? I mean, maybe that's where you figure out, hey, how can I take out Mercy? Well, maybe that's why snipers are coming into the game too.
Yeah, we're seeing. I mean, my games have been like, because I've been playing duo and trio, we've been able to have a reasonable control over half of what we were going to run. So we're running like double sniper or like a Mercy Hanzo with I ran with Shock's alt account the other day, and we were just like, both of us were playing Hanzo in different intervals, and both of us were playing Mercy at different intervals. So we're both carrying the load at how powerful Hanzo is, because like the second Brigitte drops her shield, you have storm arrows, you can punish her in a second. So the high mobility or the shield can go up and down quickly, but so can a sniper round to the head and a couple Junkrat bombs. So there's all kinds of different ways that we were talking earlier that you can rip through it. You can just play barrier hate. You can play Junkrat and Trapper. There's all kinds of ways that you can displace her with Pharah or mines and stuff. But yeah, I think that. Go ahead, Andres.
The snipers do feel really strong. I was gonna reiterate that. Widowmaker feels really good.
I don't know what it is, but I don't think people understand how powerful snipers are until you really start getting a kind of pushing out of the gold range, because then people are like actually landing consistent shots that aren't just like body shots, like headshots.
Right.
Feel really strong.
Right, that's the main thing. You do have to hit your shots with a sniper. You do have to get used to getting those headshots in, because, like we said right now, Widowmaker and Hanzo can do the two things that Brigitte hates, and that is staying away from her and still putting out a huge amount of pressure. You can still snipe that DPS in the back. You can still snipe that Mercy. Brigitte tends to be in the lower priority as a sniper for me, just because of the shield and her ability to cover from you. But still, if you get a headshot on her, that's still quite lethal.
And it's not to say that like bronze through, low plat players can't necessarily play snipers as well. it's more to say that the utilization of the entire kit, repositioning, providing pressure, landing criticals at critical moments, and having consistent damage is more present the higher you climb.
Right.
Whereas in the lower ends, when you have these spikes, it feels very oppressive because somebody that's, you know, quote unquote landing lucky shots or landing shots they don't normally hit feels very out of place and very powerful. And so that scales. Those people aren't sticking around very long if that's happening consistently. Like that's just kind of how it works, right? But I wanted to bring in one final thing that actually has nothing to do with Brigitte on today's episode, which is the PTR changes coming to Anna. There are two mainstays that are coming up, and the first one is the easiest one to break down, which is she's getting 4 more shots in the clip. She's going to a 14-round clip. That is a very large extended mag for a sniper rifle, let me tell you.
You're gonna need it though, because I was playing Anna yesterday, and the amount of healing that you have to do with her, and the amount of times you have to reload, it's like it doesn't
I can't
feel
tell you how many
comparable
times I've
to other
lost
heroes.
people to reloads.
Yeah, and like I'm not even reloading ahead of time. I was making a conscious effort to unload my entire magazine before reloading, and even then it was just hard to keep up sometimes because when your Reinhardt is just getting spammed by everything in the book, you need every single shot that you can take on him.
Now the last thing, and then I'll turn it over to Switch and what he thinks about this, just out of curiosity. But this is going to be a little hard to explain on audio only, so bear with me. But basically, I'm going to break it down a little bit differently than what they say on the patch notes. When you shoot somebody that is an ally and they have full health, the shot will not register, meaning the shot will pass through your ally. It will not heal them if they, or will not attempt to heal them if they are full HP. So if you have a Reinhardt in front of you, is the example that I'm going to use, and you're standing behind him as Anna at any range, and he's full HP holding the barrier, you shoot directly into him, and the round will pass through him and his barrier and go towards another ally or another enemy and register on the next target. Target, barrier, building, ally, enemy, doesn't matter. It will not register on your primary target if they are at full health.
Now I can see why they're doing this change. It makes a lot of sense because Anna has the problem that some other healers don't have, where depending what's on your path of vision, your healing might not get to your intended target. And sometimes that can be very frustrating when your Zarya, for example, is in critical health, but she's right next to your Reinhardt, and they keep kind of intertwining between each other. And even though you want to heal your Zarya, the Reinhardt body is just in the way, and it turns out Reinhardt is fully healed, and you're like, Reinhardt, man, I don't need to heal you right now. Get the hell out of the way. But, you know, you can't communicate that live, so it becomes a huge problem. But then again, it's a mechanic that feels odd for Overwatch, right? Shooting at somebody and the bullet just going through them. I guess with other heroes, you do it all the time, so it might not be as weird. But with that, I don't know, it just feels weird to me. But it would probably be good for her.
I think, okay, so let's talk about the ammo change. That's obviously a big change. I mean, that's a very big change for her. I mean, that's going to help her heal better. Her healing output's going to be higher. The kind of hit registration change on healing is a bit funky. You know, kind of scouring Reddit, trying to figure out what people think of this, that play Ana a lot. Some people say that this is a bad change in the sense that I used to shoot people to pre-heal them, and in anticipation, predicting that damage is coming in. Because it doesn't heal instantaneously.
No, it's over time. Right.
It's a 3-shot, or it's a 1-shot with a triple registry.
Yeah.
It has 3 ticks.
It'll go
on
damage and on heal.
So some people are saying, oh, well, that wasn't a problem. So what does this fix? This fixes someone walking in front, like you said, when you're trying to heal somebody and another teammate goes in front of them, right? But a lot of people say, oh, but I'm a good player. I just have better positioning. That was never a problem.
Right. Yeah, people have learned to work around that for sure.
But so then the question is, okay, how's this going to provide a benefit? Does it open up different positioning options for Ana? It might. I mean, maybe that's a positive thing. She could play closer to her team.
I was
She
gonna
can play a
say,
little bit.
like, that's
Well,
the main thing. She'll be better when she's in the middle of the cluster, not having to be super far away and sniping heals, but being able to be right there with the team and still healing them.
I do need to emphasize what you said about what a lot of Ana mains are saying, where you do pre-heal. You pre-heal a lot. If you're a good Ana player, you are pre-healing quite a bit on your tank targets, especially when a Reinhardt's going in and is about to drop shield. Like the second I see the shield like dissipating, I'm hitting him so that he can do that. And a lot of times I'll even pre-throw a grenade so that the grenade will block an enemy's purple. If I'm going against an enemy Ana, you can block purple by throwing the yellow, if that makes sense, so that you can counter their, counter engage, I guess you could say.
I thought that purple would always take precedent though, even over yellow.
I'd have to go check that.
We'll double check on that.
Yeah. So either way, you're definitely still pre-firing in order to do things like that. And
So, I was going to say, pre-firing doesn't actually go away. It doesn't, right? It just means that that last shot that you took will not work, right? So what I'm saying is, imagine that I think in my brain, and because it takes some time from the thought that I should shoot and to my finger across the server, someone else on the opposite team might also be firing to try to damage one of the heroes I'm trying to heal. It doesn't completely negate the idea of pre-healing at all, if that makes sense. What it does is in that specific instance where I shot and then they were damaged, I still can shoot, and the next shot that I shoot will still heal. Does that make sense? I don't know if I'm being clear, but basically that action of pre-firing is still a good thing to do. That doesn't go away.
Yeah, the difference is when you pre-fire using a unscoped round, because you're trying to get it so that the second the round leaves the barrel, you're able to line up a quick scope on a different target or the same target so that they're basically going to drop shield or go around the corner and intake a crap ton of damage, and they're going to receive 2 heals at the same time. So that they're getting a burst of heals at the moment of damage, and then the more sustained damage they're getting reimbursed for that over the course of the next 2, cycles of the registry of the heal, for example. But this is really, 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 really minute, so I don't want to bore you guys with this.
Yeah.
But
I guess,
the other thing that's actually good about it, though, Switch, is that there's a lot of times where you are healing at your allies that are all bunched up. And it's really difficult to stop shooting a bouncing Lucio that jumps in front of my Reinhardt over and over and over and over and over, and he's full. So in that sense, I think I can see that being very good. And the other sense is when you're trying to sit behind a Reinhardt and not die to a Widowmaker, and you want to shoot that Pharah in the sky, and your Rein's fine. I don't know how many times I can tell you that I've almost killed a Pharah because my Reinhardt blocked me. I can't kill her. So those are 2 things that I can see that are really good about the change. Now will this pan out? I feel like it's just gonna be a different style more than it is gonna be like a buff nerf scenario. I think the larger clip size is gonna be the thing you want to watch.
Yeah, I agree. It's a larger clip size. And you could still play in that old style is kind of what I'm saying. You can still play predictive, but it's not as forgiving.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you.
We'll see how it works with there. But glad they're paying some attention to Ana. I think that she still has a great kit, but she does feel like she's lagging behind just a bit of the other supports. I still have a blast playing her, and I really hope that she makes it back into the meta a little more, especially now that it's Death Volley. Her nano boost actually can do quite a bit when everyone's clustered up like that. And I guess the last thing we should mention about her is that you'll be able to nano boost yourself on Deathmatch. So when you're playing by yourself and you have nobody else to nano boost, you can now do it to yourself, which I thought that's really cool because I always wanted to do that in Deathmatch when I played her. She's actually a really good Deathmatch hero.
The funny thing is now she's going to be talking to herself in third person when she uses her voice lines. That's the best part.
Nice.
Ana talks about herself in third person. Feels good, man. Well, Switch, is there anything else you want to have the floor to talk about here before we close it out?
So there's a couple of things. We didn't get to everything in the Brigitte article. Be sure to
Right.
check that out on omnicmeta.com. The second is, for everyone listening to the podcast, I'm still looking for more people to test out the stats site that I've been working on. So join the Discord for Omnic Lab, ping me, ping me, and then suddenly we can get you access to this. You can test it out. I'm just looking for feedback. This stat site is what I have been primarily using for all of my stats. I wanted to make something that people will use. It's a thing that I'm making it for myself, but I'm making it for everybody else. So I hope that it can provide useful stats for you guys. It's something that's clear, simple, easy to understand, how you can progress, how can you get better, and keep track of what you're doing in Overwatch. So again, I'm looking for more testers of the site, so please ping me on Discord.
Absolutely. If you guys are interested into that, helping out Switch, getting involved, make sure to reach out to him. It's a really cool stats site. It has a couple of things that other stats sites don't have that I personally really like. It tells you your strengths, your weaknesses in that particular hero based on the main criteria in which those heroes get judged at certain ranks. So I thought that was pretty useful. I actually used it myself. I went to check my Widowmaker profile. It said that my critical hits were doing pretty good, but my Widow Mind damage was actually on the really low side. And I realized I was actually not throwing my mind often enough. I was just using
your mind.
Yeah, I'm throwing my mind. And then after that, I went on to watch some more Widowmaker footage. And surely enough, I realized that they were throwing their mind almost in every cooldown that they had in different stuff. I went on and adapted my playstyle and improved a little bit on my Widow, thanks to your site.
Also, there's a really cool feature that he's really underselling, which is the overall win rate and then your daily record. I love these because they're broken down by your sessions. So I can see on my one session where I played 19 games that I went 8-11, and the next day, after reviewing some of my stats and some of my footage and talking with some friends on how I was playing, Brigitte especially, and started playing more Hanzo, I went 11-6-1 the following session out of the next 18 games. So it's really, really valuable to check your stats, check your footage, do all of these things. Even and having a tool like this helps you do it at a glance faster and more efficiently. And for people like Switch who are fathers and also dedicated Overwatch stat analysts that want to play the game sometimes on the side, stats are really valuable and helpful if you can get to them real quick. But that's enough on that side. If you guys want to help us out, help Switch out, go to omnicmeta.com, go to omniclab.com, check out our Patreons on both of the sides of the same tag if you want to support us financially. The other way you can support the show is actually being a Twitch sub, and you can do that through Twitch Prime now that we're affiliates. It's really great. Andres just got our first paycheck on Twitch. It was great. We're going to be slowly taking our Twitch funds, and we're actually going to put them into a Twitch fund, meaning that they're going to help the show for our graphics and our updates that we're looking to do in the future, and helping us out in that way. Nothing to announce yet, but it's in the works. And also, you can help us out by leaving us an iTunes review on iTunes. We got one from Australia this last week from Dude Raider 25, who says, "I love you guys, how you guys are, and how easy it is to listen to you. This is my ritual before bed now. I've learned so much, and I still am. Thank you for existing, and congrats on 2 years." Thanks so much, Dude Raider. If you guys want to help join the clan, as Dude Raider has for iTunes reviews, you can leave us an iTunes review, and if it's 5 stars, we'll read it on the show. We've had a dry spell, I think, for a lot of podcasts that I've been listening to as well. I guess a lot of people have kind of just stopped doing iTunes reviews over the last 2 months in a large portion. But if you guys found us recently, please feel free to leave us an iTunes review. It helps us out a lot in search results and in convincing other people that check out reviews if it's worth their time. That's going to do it for the show. If you want to find us, omnicmeta.com, omniclab.com/links for us. You can find everything. We've got merch. You can find our YouTube page. You can find our Twitter when we make announcements. You can support us on Patreon, all that jazz. But, Andres, where can people find you?
If you personally want to find me, you can find me on Twitter at iPlayGames. You spell that IPLAI Games. Yeah, seek me there.
Switch?
Encourage everyone to please follow Omnic Meta at Omnic Meta on Twitter. And if you want to follow me, the Switch Fox, on Twitter, I post about random stuff, including funny things my daughter says. So, keep up, because I always post on the Omnic Meta Twitter about new articles, new things that are happening. When eventually this stats page launches, I'll be sure to announce it there. So, yeah.
And you can find me on Twitter at the tag NotRob. You can also find my Hearthstone podcast at Velen's Chosen. We had a week off this week because of a kind of a bad news situation within the Hearthstone community. And also because my drive has failed and our co-hosts were... we had a really rough week on scheduling this week, so it's okay. We'll be back next week, and I've got 3 lore episodes for you that are coming up if you're not a patron on the show. So we're going to have triple the episodes to make up for it this week. Thank you guys for tuning in on episode 102 of the Omnic Lab. It's been a pleasure. Chat. Excuse me. And for the live show and for YouTube, thank you guys for watching. If you guys are here listening, thank you for listening. And remember, don't be a lab rat, be a scientist. We'll see you guys next time. Stat on.
Thanks for everyone in the chat. Tundra, thanks my man for all the little details and data. BioShrimp, thank you for coming as always.
Yeah, great.
Belev Media was here. I think it's streaming right now. It's Boyam. What's up, dude?
Random was helping me with my PC panic earlier.
Random.
I have nothing more to teach you. The rest you must learn for yourself.
Thanks again, Switch.
Yeah, no problem.
And of course, thank you to Switch. Mr. Mars, always here too. Thanks for coming, dude.
Shout out to the 8 planets.